Rob Hinkle. Welcome to the Dads podcast.
Thanks, Robert. Happy to be here.
Hey, so you focus on guest engagement as well as generosity or generosity advisor at JH Ranch. And look, I appreciate you coming on. I wanted to hear more about it. Reason why is, and how I heard of JH Ranch is a client of mine had attended this past summer with their daughter. And literally when he got back, he could not stop talking about his experience and how transformative it was for their relationship, but also for them individually. And then I'm at opening season dove hunt down in South Alabama. I was trying to think if it was South Georgia, South Alabama. And we're sitting there, big spread for lunch and everything else. And I don't even know if I've told you the story. Big spread, bunch of people, probably 30, 40 people. And randomly, two guys sitting kind of catty corner from each other, and I'm somewhat in the middle, start talking about JH Ranch. They had been to the camp with, each of them with one of their children. And we're going on and on about the time they had and how impactful it was. So that led me to, okay, I got to find out what is JH Ranch. So I'm literally out there at the edge of the field Googling JH Ranch. What is it? And so I'm like, all right, I want to have one of these guys on here. I want to find out about it. So look, I appreciate you coming on, and I want to learn more.
Well, one thing right out of the gate, and I hope you don't take offense to this, our founder will appreciate that I clarify this. We're not a camp. We are a guest ranch. We don't have campers. We have guests. And that's
Okay.
really, we're very purposeful about not calling us. It has a lot of similarities to a camp, but it is a guest ranch. We got horses. We got horse riding. It is a full-on guest ranch, and that's what we try to promote, is the fact that we're a guest ranch.
And it is amazing with the pictures and everything all
beautiful.
the activities that you guys do. And it's a Christian focused
Absolutely. Yes, it is.
experience as well.
All biblical principles behind all of our content and everything that we do, for sure.
So, but before we get into that, I would love for you just to give me an overview of JH Ranch. Like, how did it get started? How long has it been around? And what's the mission? And then eventually I want to get into the different activities that you guys provide, or the different experiences. Because I know there's several. I know there's some with father and children. I think you have a mother and children. Mm-hmm. And then there's some for individually. I know that when I was looking at it, there's some just for men as well. And so really just kind of wanted to go through the history of it first, and as well as the overall mission.
Great. Happy to share it. So, I guess to clarify, I've been with the organization full-time capacity it'll be 3 years, April 1st. So I've had 3 summers at the ranch on staff, and this will be my 4th summer coming up this year. And it's been around for 45 years. And really it goes back to the father of our founder and president is Bruce Johnston, and his parents, Gene and Joy Johnston, are really at the heart and the birth of this story. Couple in California, met when they were young, got married, it had 12 children along the way. So actually a dozen children they had.
Wow.
And early in Gene's life, he made this commitment to God. He said, God, if you will provide the resources, I will invest them in a manner that will have eternal value. And it wasn't something that he said a lot or told even his wife about. And the lore of the story is that his wife overheard him making this commitment, that God, if you give me the resources, I'll use them in a manner that has eternal value. That's in his 20s. So 12 children. He was a real estate developer, apartment complexes, rentals in Orange County in California, south of LA. And they lived, if you talk to any of the children, they lived sparingly. They all knew the value of a penny, a nickel. They were taught to provide for themselves at the earliest age possible. Bruce tells some great stories of growing up. And The house was so packed they lived in that he would build a tree fort in the backyard and actually moved into the backyard and ran extension cables out and all kind of stuff. But in his early 50s, Gene, and he'd had a successful run at some, apartment and complex development and rentals and management. He had a banker friend that had heard about a piece of property up in Medford, Oregon, and encouraged Gene to fly up there with him. And historically, Gene had been very opposed to small planes, private jets, being the father of 12, just from a safety perspective. He didn't trust it. And this guy said, well, I've got a banker that's got a private plane, and he's willing to fly us up. We can get up there and back. It won't take much time. And at this time in his life, his kids had gotten older. He said, why not? Let's take the plane. And as they were flying up, they hit a front that was coming down from the north, and they were forced to land. They could not make it to Medford. They landed in Scott Valley, which is in Northern California, and it just began snowing. They were going to be there for 2 or 3 days. And being a real estate guy, he said, well, let's get a car and let's just drive around and look at property that's maybe for sale and see what's available here. And it's Siskiyou County is the county that we're in. Okay. Scott Valley is the beautiful big valley, and then we're off up a little street called French Creek. At the bottom of French Creek, where it comes into the little highway going through the Scott Valley, he saw a sign, JH Ranch for sale, and it was actually called JH Ranch back then. Huh. So they drive up this winding road several miles up into the forest and up a mountain and along this beautiful creek, and they find it looks like an old hunting lodge, and it was kind of the Scott Valley men's weekend, go and get a drink and pretend you're hunting type lodge, not in very good shape. And he ends up, I haven't heard this, but I have to believe that he got a sense of the Holy Spirit and was like, this is how I'm going to fulfill my commitment I made to God. Goes through, finds out how much, he negotiates a price, and before he decides to purchase it, he calls his oldest son, who is Bruce, who we consider our founder, who was started a very successful career in youth ministry at some churches in Southern California, had some major impacts on a school, and just grown a youth program from a dozen kids to over 150 in a matter of a couple of years. And it really found his niche in catering to teenagers, middle school, early high school children, and developed messaging and content around that. So Gene calls Bruce, says, hey, I found this property, describes it a little bit to him. He's like, I want to purchase it, and I want you to come up here and run it as a youth camp. And Bruce is like, well, that's great, Dad. You caught me a little off guard. How much time do you want to give me to consider this? And he said, well, I need to know in about 24 hours. So why don't you call me tomorrow and let me know what you've decided? And, of course, I wouldn't be sitting here if Bruce hadn't called back the next morning and said, okay, I'm in. And he said, Bruce tells a story of when the whole family drove up to see the new property that Gene had bought, which the other part of that was Gene had been saving up that entire, 20 to 50, and not sharing it with the family, but they'd been living minimally, and he had been saving to hopefully fulfill this promise one day that if he had the resources, he would be able to do this. So they purchased the ranch. Bruce says they get up there, and the pool is green with frogs in it. There's not one fence that's standing straight. There's like an anorexic horse standing out in the valley with brown grass surrounding it. And he said it was just like, what have we done? Dad just spent the family fortune on this, money pit. And so the family began working on the property, getting it up to shape, cleaning it, restoring it. And Bruce started across the country trying to recruit his first round of guests. So that 1979 was when they bought the property. Okay. And Bruce planned in 1980, the summer of 1980, he would offer his first program and called it Second Wind. He named the program Second Wind, targeted at young teenage boys as kind of a rite of passage, guest ranch experience, slaughtering a cow, killing like a real like things that we just don't do
Right.
anymore.
Right.
But it's kind of there's some value if you know where your food comes from.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
using the outdoors, using some challenging adventures, and then some biblical content along with it. And for his first summer, he had 5 girls that showed up. his, and I think 2 of the 5 were his sisters. And for some reason, he attracted some from here in Alabama and Birmingham, and had just a great first summer. His dad approaches him after that first few sessions that summer with just five girls and says, "Hey, I'm going to start building some more cabins." And Bruce is like, "Dad, we just had 5 girls show up. Like, why are we building more cabins?" And Gene just had the faith. He knew something eternal was destined for this property, and he knew it would continue to. God had just anointed it. The fruit came of the first 5, and it just started growing from there, and it grew consistently. Again, that was 1980, and over the next 12 years, they kept adding more sessions, more people from across the country were coming, but it was a heavy southeastern kind of presence for some, the Bible Belt maybe. It was biblical.
Yeah.
Didn't get a lot of Californians coming to it. And it got so popular that the demand, parents started witnessing their teenage children come home literally transformed, just a different person. And they're like, we want to come. We want to come out and experience the ranch. And I'll kind of hit, as I'm going through this history, I'm probably going to hit on some of the programs. And then
I want you to.
The programs a little bit later in more detail. So in 1992, we did our first father-son program. And the heart of this program, and it's really become more of almost a flagship than our student programs, was it's supported by the verse Malachi 4:6 that he will turn the hearts of the fathers to the children and the hearts of the children to their fathers. And that's our verse as an organization. You mentioned vision and mission, and the way our handbook states it, our vision is to transform communities one family at a time. So when we have a family, a couple, a person, a member of a family that come to the ranch, our intention is that if nothing happens at the ranch, should stay at the ranch. It should all be transferable back into your life, back into your home, your friends, your community. So that is our vision, is to transform communities one family at a time. And our mission is to teach and model how to love God and love others through the use of practical applications. And the use of practical applications, you might say, well, what does that mean? And it's through challenges. It's through risk. It's through putting people in physical situations, not them hearing and seeing, but actually doing, and then experiencing and learning through that experience how to love God and love others. So everything we do has a purpose. Nothing is just to fill time.
Yeah.
Like every activity is designed about reinforcing some of the content or some of the messaging or the lessons that we're trying to teach while someone's at the ranch, whatever program it may be.
And real quick, that's what I heard too, is when they were telling me the different activities they were doing, that was what really got me. But everything, whether it's the zip line, the rope walk or whatever, I can't remember what they called it, the big blob out in the water.
Yeah, that's the blob. It's called the blob.
Yeah. But they said that there's a purpose. It's not just, we're going to go jump on the blob for an hour. We're going to go do that. Like there's really a purpose behind everything.
There is. Yeah. I hope we do stay focused on the ranch, but as the history goes, there's other arms of the ministry that have been born out of this walk that the Johnston family have been on. And one of them was they had an encounter with the mayor of Ariel, Israel, Ron Nachman, and this was in the late 90s. And through their connection and relationship they built with Ron Nachman, there was a foreign student exchange with Israel for them to send some of their teens over to the ranch to serve on our crew, and for us to send some students over to Israel. Through that, Ron actually came to the ranch and spent a week at the ranch. And by the end of the week, he pulled Heather and Bruce Johnson, Heather is Bruce's wife,
Okay.
aside and said, "We have to have one of these in Israel, and I want to help make this happen in Ariel, Israel," which led to the building and development of the National Leadership Center, JH Israel's National Leadership Center in Israel, just outside of Ariel, which now is for the officer training in the Israeli army. This is a requirement. Every officer that's in the Israeli army goes through the National Leadership Center. And since it got finished in 1997, I believe it was 2010 was when it was completed. 97 was when they had the encounter with Ron Nachman. 2010 was when the National Leadership Center opened. They've had over 100,000 Israelis go through the National Leadership Center, which out of JH Israel now was born USIEA, which is United States Israel Education Association. And Heather is the founder of all of that. So Bruce's wife is the lead on everything Israel. And she takes Congress trips with congressmen to Israel to teach them on the history of Israel, to stress the importance of the partnership between the United States and Israel. She was behind some of the funding of Iron Dome in Israel for our Congress to sign off on the funds allocation to help Israel build the protective infrastructure that they have over there. And she continues to consult our Congress and probably through them even our president on Israel policy and how our relationship should be with Israel.
That's interesting. Is that Christian based over there, or is that more Judaism?
It is Old Testament. It's based on the Torah and Israel scripture. Okay. They use, I think, the life of David to do a lot of the lessons at the National Leadership Center.
Okay.
So it's primarily focused on Old Testament. But Heather nor us or any of our employees that we don't hide what we believe, and we hope that one day all of them will come on board with us.
Yeah.
To believe Jesus is who he says he is.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. That's interesting. I had no idea about that. Let's go back to the ranch. So tell me more about that.
So parent-child, 92. So we start having parent-child, and the dad-son grows into dad-daughters and eventually into moms and sons and daughters. So every summer we have 6 week-long sessions of parents and teens. There is 1 week that is father-daughter only. Mm-hmm. We call that Sweet Week. I went to that one with my youngest daughter in 2018. And it's about 120 to 125 pairs come through each one of those 6 sessions throughout the summer. So that's our parent-son-daughter program. And that program focuses on, and I don't want to give away too much of the week, but there's this rhythm of the week. There's an initial day of fun at the lake. You mentioned the blob. There's a lot of other apparatuses around the lake. We call it ice breaking. We want to break the ice on day 1. So we do that through Fun First. So we have Lake Day, Rodeo Day is the first day. So we have a rodeo where there's both like traditional rodeo activities, but also competitions between the different teams of parent, sons, and daughters. And then we have an open lake day that afternoon where people are doing just crazy, life-threatening stuff on our lake. But we call it challenge by choice. Everything is challenged by choice. We're not forcing you to do everything. But it's amazing how many dads act like they're in their teens again when they get out there.
That is what I've heard. Yeah, I've heard that.
We have more injuries on that day than any day of the whole program.
Yeah, from the dads.
Yes, absolutely, from the dads. Then we get into there's 4 activities. So there's Rodeo Lake Day, there is 4 activity days, and then there is what we call solo banquet day. So Rodeo Lake Day and solo banquet day are the kind of the bookends of the week. And the activity days, you kind of get into a rhythm of solo time in the morning. So we give everybody an hour in the morning before breakfast to just be in the Word. We take them through the book of James. We give them the book of James in their notebook. There's 5 chapters in the book of James. So each morning they read a chapter of the book of James. Breakfast, and then we call it family time, where you have an hour with the person that you came with. So this is really, it's about building if I could sum up the week, it's building your relationship with God and building your relationship with the person that you came with. And through building those two, when you go back into your community and your family, it's gonna change how you relate to other people as well.
That's exactly what I've heard. That, when they said transformative with their relationship for my client, with his relationship with his daughter, but also them individually and
Yeah.
their relationship individually being their relationship with God.
If you think about it, I don't know of many opportunities for a dad or a parent, period, to take a week and spend it with one child.
Yeah.
And I think just a parent doing that carries weight with the impact on that child.
And it's just one child. So I have two sons. I couldn't go and take both of my sons.
That's correct.
I'd have to flip a coin.
You would get to come twice, not have to come twice. You'd get to come
okay,
twice.
there you go. There you go. There you go. Okay. But I would be there with one of them individually and then the next one. Okay.
That's right.
And that
That's
makes
right.
sense to get that one-on-one time, because otherwise it would be too challenging.
Mm-hmm. And we have the content, and it's most of it is activities during the day. I mean, it's really program activity, risk based. We've got the ropes courses, which I think you were mentioning. We've got zip lines. We have this thing called the Screaming Eagle, which you've probably seen at an amusement park, where they strap you in with the person you came with.
Yes.
We pull you up 50 feet and you swing out over the valley.
Yes.
There's low courses, which are some of the most powerful exercises that we do. It's just you with the person that you came with, going through some low course activities that stress communication, trust. So you do a lot of that together. The afternoons, when we get into the content, it's typically later in the afternoon, and we'll separate the parents and the children. The dads and moms go to a lakeside venue to hear content there. The children, the teenagers, go to poolside to hear content there. Similar messaging, but just delivered more age appropriately based on the two settings. Dinner, and then that night we have a big top. We have a big top tent that's at the very bottom of the valley that the ranch is situated in. And again, I can't reinforce. If someone just goes to the website, jhranch.com, just the landing page, and look at the picture there and the video there, it is that beautiful, if not more beautiful, if you're physically there. But the big top will close the day with worship, and then we call it an impartation. And the themes of those are the big rock messages happen in the big top. When you're with your child, you're all together on your team. Life purpose, what did God create you for? And it's to love him and love others. Now, you may have a vocation, you may have these other things, but your purpose in life. And Bruce does an amazing talk about, if we are a creation, then therefore there is a creator. Mm-hmm. And if there's a creator, most creations are created with a purpose. Mm-hmm. If you think about the automobile, Henry Ford created it to get you from point A to point B. It didn't just evolve out of a parking lot, and all of a sudden you had a Ford,
Wasn't just to sit there.
Right, correct. And it took the will of an intelligent being to create it. And if you think about how complex we are, and not to get into a whole, discussion on evolution versus creation, but I mean, there is a creator and there is a purpose.
Yeah.
And we think the Bible is who tells us what that purpose is. And it can be summed up in loving him and loving others.
Tell me also, there's individual, or I don't know if it's individual, but I know that there's some just men-only programs as well, correct?
Yep. So that's parent, son, daughter. Talked about that. The children, there's still student programs. So Second Wind, which was our initial flagship program, that still exists. So there's Challenge, Second Wind, Track 2 Bike, and Track 2 Mountain. So after my daughters, I have two daughters, after they came out to the ranch with me, they had aged out already by the time I took them to go to the Challenge program, but they came back and they went to Second Wind, which is a 2-week program for I think you need to be a freshman or sophomore in high school to attend Second Wind.
Okay.
And it
And
is
that's
really
just for the kids.
just for, yes, just for
Okay.
kids.
Okay.
And it's a leadership program, biblically based, but it is building young leaders that will hopefully be adult leaders that help lead this country in the future. And the Second Wind program is anchored around a 24-hour solo in the wilderness. So we're surrounded by federal lands. The Klamath Mountains are behind us, and then Russian Wilderness is this big wilderness area, federally designated wilderness area. This right kind of sits above, like if you're in the ranch proper and you look up, you're looking up into the Russian Wilderness in Northern California. We have a location we take the students to, and then we disperse them into an area where each one of them is by themselves, cannot sit. They're in hollering distance if they need help, but they're
Right.
visibly can't see anyone else. So it's complete solo time in the wilderness just to get with God, wrestle with Him, contemplate the lessons they've heard, learned, and just see where they're called in life.
Just listen.
So that's kind of the heart of the Second Wind program. Challenge is a little bit younger. That's 8th and 9th graders come to the Challenge program, and it is really fun focused. It's surfing in the Pacific. It's camping in the Redwoods Forest. It's jet boats on the Rogue River in Oregon. There's some great content, but it's really, at that age, it's let's have fun and then come back for Second Wind, which I just described. And then after you go through the Second Wind program, you can come back for track 2. And both of my girls did, well, because of COVID, one only did one, but my oldest daughter did track 2 bike and mountain, and then my youngest daughter did track 2 mountain. Track 2 bike is a 109-mile bike from not far away from the ranch all the way to the Pacific coast. So it's an overnight bike trip to the coast. And then track 2 mountain is attempting to summit Mount Shasta, which is a 14,000-foot mountain in Northern California. Yeah. And
Sounds fun. I mean, we had nothing like that when I was a kid. Nothing at all. Are you getting
much like this anywhere else?
No. Where do you draw kids from? All over, or is it?
Oh yeah, all over. I typically do the welcome at the parent, son, daughter, and kind of the opening thing. We see where's everybody from, and we'll have anywhere from 20 to 30 states represented at any given week, and a lot of times 1 or 2 countries as well.
I was going to ask you if there's ever been anybody from outside.
Oh yeah, Canada. We typically will have a handful of Canadians that attend during a summer. We've got one of our anchors with our Outback arm is New Zealand.
Okay.
And Australia, New Zealand will typically have a couple of couples from there, and then we've had Europe. Different countries in Europe as well that have attended.
Gosh, that's wonderful. The other thing that I have that all 3 of the people speaking talked about was the staff and how phenomenal they were. Are they former guests of JH Ranch? Or
amazingly enough, not all of them are. The majority are,
Okay.
but not every single one. It depends on year to year what ratio have never stepped foot on the ranch before. But I think even in the last 3 years since I've been out there, I think there's been, golly, a third. A third seems high, but I want to say one summer, like a third of the crew. We call them crew, is what we call it. It's about 150 college students that volunteer to come out for the summer and give their summer to us. Of course, we house them, we feed them. We have a program for them throughout the summer where they're getting content as well. I would say it's even more the premier leadership program than our Second Wind program is too. So they come out and learn how to be servant-hearted leaders for our guests, and they're really, I always use the term secret sauce, but it's not a secret. They're our special sauce. They are who our guests are in contact more than our staff. I mean, they're in contact more with our crew than they are with us, the full-time staff. Now, we'll bring them out 2 to 2.5 weeks ahead of the first guest arriving, and there's a complete curriculum we take them through They learn their areas they're going to be working in. They know what we mean by excellence. They know what we mean by hospitality. Um, One of our sayings at the ranch around hospitality is the answer is always yes. What is the question? So if you have a need, we're going to do our best to meet it, regardless of how crazy it might be. Which most of the time we don't get a lot of crazy ones, but we have had some for sure.
I'm
And
sure.
we had, I want to say it was 40 some odd, more than 40 colleges represented last summer with that college crew, with a heavy Samford here in Birmingham. Auburn is a huge anchor for us, and then Clemson has begun to be another big anchor college for our crew, where they're even taking some of our content and doing some college programs. JH Outback University at Auburn and soon to be at Clemson is another. Just it's another way we're growing.
Gosh, that's
But they
wonderful.
so they're yes, they could have come through. It could be word of mouth from someone who's been through. It could be through our recruiting and social media campaigns to attract people to sign up and interview. We're finishing up hiring right now. Actually, by the end of this month, we should have all of our crew hired for this summer. And yeah, there'll be a good number of them that have never set foot on the property before.
That's interesting. Well, yeah, again, they went on and on. All three of them, all three of the men went on and on about the staff, and even one of them was talking about, well, I'll tell you what. I mean, if I'm ever looking for, juniors to come in, if they have JH Ranch on their resume, they're automatically hired. So obviously it made quite the impression. Or they made quite the impression on the guests there.
I tell
Let,
you,
let,
they work their tails off,
that's what they
but
said too.
they love it though too. We had and the other program I wanted to mention, which I think you kind of brought up, was the men's program.
Yeah, that's what I want to go
Last
into.
summer, so the men's program's at the tail end of the summer. We only have that window of when kids are out of school that we can do the
Right.
full programs with parent and teens and students. So the men's program was at the tail end of the summer, and most of our college crew had to go back home as well. And we had a remnant of the crew stay. We only had 61 men, we had 30. We've had 2 years of our men's program, so we had
Okay.
30 men come out in 2024. We had 61 men come out last year in August, and this remnant of crew that stayed and volunteered to stay longer and help us put on the men's week. They had to work in multiple different departments, which is not something they're asked to do all summer, and they worked a lot more hours. And I had multiple of them the last night of our men's week come up to me and say, "This was my favorite week of the whole summer." Even though they
Really?
worked harder, slept less. Granted, it was maybe a new program, so they were getting
Yeah.
to see something different and watch these dads and older men come through in a solo capacity. But it's just, I can't speak more highly of our crew that we hire and that come out and work. And it's typically maybe most are one and don't one. They give us one summer, but the longest tenure of most crew is a 3 year. They'll come back out. My youngest daughter did it 3 years in a row. And at that point, by your third year, you're kind of like the senior in high school. Like
Right.
I'm ready to graduate. I'm ready to go
Yeah.
on and do something
Yeah.
different.
Well, too, you're out of college by then,
Yeah.
and you don't have those free summers anymore because hopefully you're out of college and you're being productive,
Mm-hmm.
and you don't get summers off anymore. Those end. Tell me more about the men's program.
So when I came on in 23, and this was from really probably from a selfish guest perspective. Like I said, I came through with my two daughters, 2015, 2018, through the parent son daughter program. My wife and I had come back in 2021, and Scott River Lodge is a married couples retreat that's about 40 miles away from the ranch. So
Okay.
it's a 5-star resort that is all marriage programming. But I always thought, man, I wish I'd had more kids just so I could come back to the ranch one more time. And then I started thinking, well, why don't we? Like, how many other men are there like me that over the last 45 years have come through a program with their child and then watched their child go out 2 or 3 more summers
Right.
and come back with these amazing experiences and growth and just stories? And what would it look like if we tried to do something just for men? And we started, I did some kind of during dinner, during that summer of 23, I would talk to some of the dads like, what if we did a men's program? What would it look like? What if we did this? Would you get back? Could you give up a week of your life? Because coming with a child is one commitment.
You can
Coming and
justify
leaving
that.
your family and your business all
Right.
by yourself for a week is a whole nother level of commitment. And I was trying to come up with new stuff that would attract them. And then I said, what if it was like the Second Wind program? Like that program your child came to right after they've been out here with you. And we had 24 hours in the wilderness, solo time, and we modeled it a lot after that student program, Second Wind. And it was amazing the number of dads were like, I maybe could get back out here for that. Like that really sounds intriguing. Sounds like something that I would like to do. So we did that, and our when we come up with a new program, we try to start with what's the mission of this program.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a team of us that developed the Men's Week. We spent a lot of time on that initial mission, and it was fully reconcile the hearts of fathers to their Holy Father. And then we got into some John Eldredge. I don't know if you've read Fathered by God.
Yep.
And the journey of masculinity, wounding. I mean, and I think John Eldredge is happy with people using his content, but there's a lot of reconciling our hearts to our Heavenly Father, but then that journey of masculinity and using that as a roadmap for men as to how we become who we are, stages that maybe we didn't go through well or skipped altogether, where wounding might have occurred. What does it take to heal those wounds? This past one, our second one, this last August, which I would say it was a beta program in 24. We learned a lot. We shortened the week where it's not a full week. It's I think five days maybe to travel to come out and do the men's program. So we shortened it, and at the end of any JH program, we have what we call testimonies. So at the end of a week or the end of an Outback weekend, we open the stage to our guests, and they get to come up and share, what did God do in your life this week or this weekend while you were at this JH program. So we had a testimony night at the end of Men's Week, and this one young dad, I think maybe 30-ish, in the neighborhood of his 30s, three kids, had been to multiple. Actually, when he got up and started sharing, he said, I've been to every JH program I can go to. He said, I came out here with my dad. I did Challenge. I did Second Wind. I did Track 2 Bike, Track 2 Mountain. I've served on crew. I've gone through an Outback weekend. He said, this week was the most impactful week that I've ever had at a JH event. Yeah.
Is there?
Here's the key. Here's something I want to point out about the whole, and it's not in our vision and mission, but it is in what we tell people on day one. Our main goal is to create an undistracted environment. So it's hard to get to the ranch. You fly into Medford, and it's an hour and 45-minute drive. You fly into Sacramento, and it's a 4.5-hour drive. It's not easy to go across the country to Northern California and get to the ranch. So it's hard to get to. For the Men's Week, we have a cell phone policy. We take up all cell phones at the beginning of Men's Week. For all of our student programs, we take up cell phones at the beginning of the program. For our parent, son, daughter, we strongly encourage, and we're actually debating if we need to even actually go to just taking them up, but we strongly encourage leaving all technology in the car that you arrive in. Like, totally be focused on what you're here to do this week. No distractions. The food, hot, good. The scenery, green grass, beautiful horses, beautiful mountains. Like, nobody's going to leave thinking, man, that food was terrible, or that place was ugly, or I couldn't believe how loud the music. I mean, we do our best to create an undistracted environment for you to hear from God, focus on your relationship with Him. And if it's a couples program, whether it's your wife or a child, focus on your relationship with that person. And it's amazing what you can hear and what can happen if you do that.
That's beautiful. Hey, so with the men's program, is there a lot of community as well in the fact
there is,
which I think is so important? I feel, men being able to get vulnerable and be vulnerable in front of other men.
Mm-hmm.
I think we as men, I was just talking to somebody yesterday, we miss that. we've gotten away from that. And my goodness, give women props. I mean, they do a very good job of talking and carrying on with their friends and discussing stuff and voicing life's challenges, where, I mean, we always have kind of taken it on our back and not shared it and just stuffed it. And I think we have even more so since COVID. But I think it's so important for men to really be around others and to be vulnerable, shed a tear,
yes.
you know, just talk about when you failed or what you might be scared of, you know, those things, because we just don't.
And it's actually, the world tells you not to do all that,
Yeah.
The world tells you just suck it up, buttercup, and just, tough it out. But that's not the way it's meant to be, and it's not healthy. And yes, we do. So every night after the Big Top Talk, and we have Big Top Talks, whether it's parent, son, daughter, student program, men's program, we always culminate in the Big Top with worship and an impartation. And then following every Big Top Talk is what we call, it's huddle groups. So you're in a cabin. The men's program, it's 6 men per team with a coach. So there's 7 people in a cabin. And then the men's program is the only one that does this, but we have fire pits around the lake and chairs set up around, 7 chairs set up around each fire pit. So you come back up the lodge. But this is maybe getting too granular, but the way that's designed, the lodge is it's probably a half-mile away from the Big Top.
Okay.
And it's a climb. So after dinner, you have a downhill walk that gets you to the Big Top. And like I said, everything has a purpose. There's a why behind everything we do. That is for you to prepare for what you're getting to receive in the Big Top. After the Big Top, the worship and the word shared there is the walk back up to the lodge, which is to digest the content you just received in the Big Top. So there's a purpose even in this walk back and forth between these two venues. And when you get back up to the lodge, if it's any other program, you break out into your huddle groups around the lodge. The students typically go back to the cabin with their coach and have huddle group there. For Men's Week, we actually serve dessert out at the lake, and there's fire pits with chairs, and every team breaks into their huddle group. And your coach has some questions to prompt and then help facilitate those. It's like a small group. You try to manage a small group, make sure everybody that needs to share has an opportunity to share, and the people, like I'm probably being on this podcast, that like to talk too much, don't talk too much.
That's why I have you on here, is to talk.
And yes, people get vulnerable, and yes, it gets real right out of the gate. And
that's beautiful.
One of my roles during the summer is our college students that coach the parent, son, daughter teams. Every morning at breakfast, while they're having breakfast, we have a debrief where we can update from the previous night's huddle group. We get any prayer requests or any praise reports from each team, but it also gives me visibility into what's happening, like what's coming in. But who's dealing with suicidal thoughts, who's dealing with divorce, who's dealing with adoption, who's dealing with self-harm. I think this past summer, a lot of summers it's technology, pornography, these type things. Mm-hmm. Anxiety has been like the number one growing, and maybe that's a product of COVID. I don't know if it's a product of social media, technology.
Huge.
But both for male and female young people, anxiety is the number one, by a long shot, issue that they have coming into the range.
I just had an expert on a few weeks ago talking about teen anxiety and just how devastating it is.
Yeah. Crippling.
Yeah.
And I mean, to the point of self-harm. Not many are at, a suicidal level, but depression.
Yes. A lot of it is social media, though.
Yeah.
A lot of it is social media driven. There is 24/7 access. And she was telling me about it. One, it's just the comparing. Oh, that they look this way, they're happy, look where they are, look what they just bought at the mall. There's that. And then it's also knowing where everybody is. So, the different apps where you can see where your friends are. I think Snap might be one of them, where you can see where different friends are. Well, all of a sudden you see where there's 5 people in your group at the same location, but you're at home and
Yeah.
you didn't know anything about it because you weren't
Yep.
invited. And why didn't they invite me? And so it's, it's a constant. She was talking about it. I knew that that was something that teens were facing. I did not realize to that degree. So that's interesting and
Yeah.
I think it's something we're going to have to deal with for a while.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, we're just now getting the actual scientific data on what it's been doing to us
Yeah.
for the last 15 years or so.
That's something.
So I guess to go back to the original, there is vulnerability, there is community. Most of the time, and we encourage it. We don't always facilitate it. It's probably something we could do a little bit better job at. But once they leave, now the men's week, our coaches did continue to meet with their teams weekly for I think 3 months after.
I was going to
men's
ask
week.
you that. That's great.
And some continue beyond that. From a personal perspective, when I went through with my 2 daughters, I'm still in communication with the dads. Now it's not every day,
Right.
but if there's major milestone things of marriage or a baby or
Have like a little brag text group,
yeah, we still have like the group me's of when we were coming out of the week we had at the ranch together, and it's just good people that have a shared incredible experience once you go through it together, and it builds bonds.
That is what I've heard. The people you meet, the other dads that you meet out there, and I'm sure it's the same with the kids.
Yeah,
they meet other kids from all over, and that's wonderful. I love what you guys are doing. I love what you guys are doing.
The kids definitely lifelong friendships are formed for sure, and then I hate to keep using my own family and self as an example, but my oldest daughter met her now husband at the ranch as well when she was back on one of the student programs. And there's a lot of couples that have come out of the ranch. And Bruce will tell you, I don't know statistically if this is accurate, but he says there's only 1 divorce that he's aware of any couple that is married that met at the ranch. And that's over 45 years and a lot of marriages.
That's pretty amazing.
I can neither support nor deny that statistic. That's from the founder.
Well, it makes sense too because they're pointed in the same direction, and they have
common
the same
values.
Yeah, and they have that same base that is so important and necessary to have that same spiritual base that's so necessary to have a successful marriage.
Yeah.
So that makes
just
sense.
A quick story and just the faith part of it that comes out of it. And this is that I grew up Episcopalian. My wife and I married Episcopal church, raised the kids majority of their life Episcopalian. And we got exposed to JH in 2013. And we stayed Episcopalian then. I'm not anymore, but we were then. But I had spent the majority of my life sitting in the car on Sunday morning, blowing the horn like, okay, everybody, get out in the car. We're going to church. Let's go, let's go, let's go. COVID hit. My oldest daughter had come home from Auburn because everybody had to go home. She had started going to church in Auburn Community Church, ACC. And they were one of the first churches, young pastor, tech savvy, to be on YouTube after everybody was quarantined at home. So one of the first Sundays after we're home in COVID, Lauren says, hey, ACC is going to be on YouTube at 10 o'clock. Can we watch it Sunday morning? Like, yeah, absolutely. So we watch it. The next Sunday at 9:45, I look around. My entire family is set up in our den, YouTube on, Bible and journal in hand, waiting to go to church together through YouTube.
Wow.
And I would give JH Ranch, JH Outback, JH Adventures a lot of the credit for the entire family being that way, because I was not always that way. But spending time in the Word, abiding, and journaling is another key message that we reinforce at every program we do. You've got to give God your first fruit every single day.
That is so important and so beautiful. Tell me what we've missed. Have we missed anything? You think we've covered it?
There's no way to cover it all.
Well, tell me this, for those that are listening, how can they find you guys?
So jhranch.com, that's probably the easiest way. And then there's branches to get to every other ministry arm of JH Adventures from there. I do want to point out JH Outback, and that was a program. I think Bruce realized early on there's no way we can get everyone out to the ranch in Northern California, whether it's our capacity, financial constraints, which we do have. I hope no one listening to this thinks they can't go because of the price. We have a Giving Tree program. We have donors that give specifically to fund a Giving Tree program. And we don't want anyone that wants to come to the ranch to not come because they think they financially can't make it out there. We will work with any guest that wants to make it to the ranch. We verify their needs, but we do have a giving program that can sponsor people to come to the ranch. Regardless of that, we have the summer. There's only so many beds at the ranch. We're never going to be able to get enough people through to impact the world like we would like to. And Bruce, it was actually 1996 in Dallas, bought a big top and had 1,000 people come to what he called JH Outback. And it was a one weekend event. He boiled down a lot of the program content at the ranch into a very tight weekend worship content, some low course activity events, and called it JH Outback. Had a one-time deal. Well, in 2000, years later, a man, Bill Trick, who had been to the ranch, been impacted, very successful businessman in Tuscaloosa, had gone, I think he'd done the Walk of Emmaus, which is a weekend event with the Episcopal Church. And he saw some overlap between what Emmaus did and what JH Ranch was doing. And he said, we're going to do a weekend event in my city. I'm going to help put it on. We're going to do it in my city, Tuscaloosa. And we're going to do it twice a year. And then we're also going to start a men's huddle group that meets every week of the year, every Wednesday morning, 6 a.m. And they're coming up on their 25th year celebration. Tuscaloosa has some of the same men that have been meeting every Wednesday, every week for the last 25 years in that group. But it's where a city can take ownership of the JH model. They have men and women that can do huddle groups weekly, and then twice a year at a local venue. We have the whole recipe. We can give you all the content, the talks, the agenda, the activities. We can help set you up. We can even help fund your initial event if we need to. And we now have, I think this last fall, we had 27 events across the United States, and we are in, I believe it's 7 countries around the world: New Zealand, Poland. We actually, Mac Ogren, our Outback International guy, has been in Kenya and South Africa this week, and then flying back through South America, I think Argentina. So a city or a country can kind of take this Outback model and start impacting families and communities in their local community through a JH program, which is actually where I came from. I went to Mobile, Alabama's Outback weekend in October of 2013, and that was where I got my first taste of the Kool-Aid and been drinking it ever since. I got plugged into the men's group in Mobile, started volunteering on the weekend events in Mobile, eventually became the city leader for Mobile in 2018, and then came on full-time staff in 23 with the ranch.
That's wonderful. I had no idea about that.
Atlanta actually has one too. Atlanta's got
do they?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to look into that.
Is
there information on your site to get plugged into that?
It is. Okay. Absolutely. Yep. Like I said, if you just go, JH Ranch is the simplest one to go to, and we've said it so many times, jhranch.com. And then at the very bottom, you can go to JH Outback. You can go to Scott River Lodge, our couples 5-star resort in Northern California. You can learn more about JH Israel, Outback International, the whole 9 yards.
Well, I will be sure to link that and also your social media as well, because I know I have links to that. And so I'll be sure to link that with the interview and everything I post. And look, Rob, I appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know you're busy, but thanks for coming on. Thanks for telling me more about JH Ranch and sharing it with everybody else. And look, I pray you guys have continued success, and
Thank you.
Much appreciative of what you guys are doing out there.
Well, I appreciate you having us. It's been an honor, and I hope we reconnect in a few months, and maybe somebody heard this podcast and got out to the ranch this summer, and we'll have a cool testimony about it.
That would be wonderful. That would be wonderful, and you'll definitely have to let me know.
Absolutely.
Hey,
Thank you, Robert.
yeah, thank you. And thank you all for listening to the Dad to Dads podcast. You can find us on Spotify or Apple, as well as most podcast platforms. You can also find us on YouTube and Instagram. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. And please leave comments. I read every single comment, and I love hearing your feedback and also your topic suggestions as well. Thank you all again, and we will talk with you next time.